channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to cut some edible images. Today we are making a cake topper, but obviously you don't have to make a cake topper. You can use it for just laying it on top of your cake, cookies, cupcakes, literally anything. But I want to go over a few helpful tips with you guys. So for the first tip, it is that when you print out your image on a sheet of paper, and you'll take it there, or you can just print it out on a USB drive. It is the size of a paper, just like a regular sheet of paper, but the one thing that they don't tell you is that between the top and the bottom, you're losing about an inch. So you just want to make sure you're printing it a little bit bigger than what you're actually needing. And I'll give you guys a close-up that you can see. Another thing is that these are not cheap. They're about like $10, $15 depending on where you are. So if you can, just like print out like a different sizes, or if you're doing cupcake cup toppers or something, just print out extra, because I promise you, you'll need them, because somewhere along the way you always mess up. The second tip is that we'll be using the Satin Ice fondant today. This is like the only fondant that I use for all my cakes. Not sponsored, by the way, but it's just like a really good product. Yeah, so that's another one. I don't recommend using like making your own fondant. I've done that, but I just like never found like a really good recipe that I personally like, but this is a really good brand. And the last tip is that you want to invest in an X-Acto blade. Do not try and cut this out with a pair of scissors, because when you're getting in all those little tight areas, I promise you, when you're starting to cut and everything, this paper tears very easily, and it's just going to be a big mess. And the last thing you want to do is be running back to the store because you tore your one sheet of paper that you had. That was my tips that I wanted to give you. If you want to see this final cake, then I'll be putting a picture and a link down below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get started. You want to make sure that your bag is closed and airtight, because if it's not, I promise you it will dry out and crack, and then you won't be able to use your image. With this in mind, now you're ready to take out the first image of the bag. And for our first one, we are going to be making this one a cake topper, and for the second one, we're going to be doing this one a little bit later, but for the side of the cake. I printed 2 images just in case I messed up on the first one, and this is actually going to be the only time I actually use scissors. I'm just cutting it in half just so we have a smaller condensed image. Now with my angled spatula, I will very carefully separate the two from the edible image and the paper underneath. I recommend by starting at one of the corners and work your way from the outer rim to the middle of the image. Now with my X-Acto, I will very carefully cut along the sides of my image. But before you get started cutting, I honestly really recommend you try a few test cuts and see how hard or stiff your image is, because if you cut it too soft and you try to tear the 2 pieces of paper apart, it will tear on you, and if you cut it too hard, then you'll just be trying to pry up the piece of paper and the image. It's just gonna end up like a mess. While I'm cutting out my image, I actually just go and tear out the excess as I'm going. And once you have this, now the base of your image is done. Because this is a cake topper and it will be standing up, I will be rolling out a white piece of fondant to about a ½ inch thick, and I will be putting 1 large dowel and 2 toothpicks. Depending on how big your image is, you may want to just put a few toothpicks or a few dowels, depending on how tall it is. But because this one is pretty top heavy with the little shield on the top, I'm actually going to be running the dowel through the fondant, through the arm part, so it gives it more stability to actually stand up, because I promise you that with fondant actually standing up like this, it will easily crack, and you will just absolutely lose the whole image and the fondant topper, and there will be no salvaging it. After I have rolled out my fondant, I'm going to lightly brush on a thin sheet of water. When you put down your image, you do not want to try and lift up your image, because it is very sticky and it will just automatically tear. If you think you've messed up, just try and work around it rather than picking it up and tearing it. Now that we have it on our piece of fondant, we will be taking this and again tracing around these sides, tearing away the excess fondant. And you can leave it one of two ways. You can either leave it just like this one that you see here, or the way that I actually do these is with my X-Acto. I put it at an angle and then cut along these sides just to give it a more rounded look so you don't see so much fondant when you're looking at the side. I honestly think it just looks a little bit more professional, but it's really up to you and how much time you have. Once you finish this, now you are done, and you will want to let this sit overnight so that it hardens. Now we're ready to move on to the second half. So for this one, it will actually be for the side of the cake. And again, with my X-Acto, I will be going around tracing along the outside to just get my base layer. Now let's listen to some music while we watch this in very high speed. Helpful hints is that if you are going to be rolling out a sheet of fondant and you are making cookies, I recommend rolling it out to about 1/4 of an inch. And for cupcake toppers, again, 1/4 of an inch. And for cake sides, like the one that we have here, again, 1/4. But if you're setting it just on top of your cake and your base is a white, then you do not have to do any fondant. But if your base is colored, like chocolate or any type of dark color, then you will want to just again roll out a sheet of fondant, put it on top, and then cut along the excess. And this is not my image, but your cake will end up looking like this. And I bet you're wondering, why do we use white fondant? That's because just like that chocolate cake that you saw that image on, your image will be ruined if you use anything other than white. So I really recommend using white unless you want that really dark image where it's just honestly gonna risk mess up all your colors. And is it just me, or does anyone else find it very satisfying to watch the excess of the image just peel off? I don't know, maybe it's just me. Then again, we're just going to damp our fondant, place our image on top, and for the larger images, I actually go back and try and lightly tap any of the edges that lift up. Then I go back with a little bit of water and just try and tap it back down. Once my image is secure onto my piece of fondant, then you're ready to again cut out the excess fondant. If it's just going on the side of the cake or cupcakes or cookies or anything like that, then you don't need to be trimming the excess at an angle or anything, just because it's a lot thinner, and you're just going to put that on the side of the cake and nobody is going to notice. And there you go, now you know how to work and cut with edible images. Hope you guys found this video very helpful. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions that I didn't cover. Hit that link above to watch the next part of the series. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.